I'm staring at my phone screen at 3:47 a.m., watching my sister Rachel's Instagram story from what looks like a rooftop party in downtown Austin. Champagne glasses, laughter, someone playing guitar. The timestamp shows she posted it 23 minutes ago. I'd love to know which corner of the globe you're watching from, and if this story speaks to you, make sure to subscribe. Tomorrow's video is one you absolutely can't miss. 47 minutes after I called her from the emergency room. My hands shake as I scroll back to our text thread. The messages I sent at 2:58 a.m. still show as delivered but unread. Rachel, I'm at Memorial Hospital. Had a panic attack so severe they brought me in by ambulance. Can you come? I'm scared. Then at 3:15 a.m., please, I don't want to be alone. And at 3:31 a.m., they want to admit me for observation. I need someone here. Nothing. Radio silence. But apparently she had time to post about whatever celebration she's at, complete with heart emojis and tagged friends I've never heard of. The fluorescent lights in the psychiatric evaluation room buzz overhead like angry wasps. Dr. Patricia Martinez, the crisis counselor on duty, sits across from me with a clipboard and the kind of gentle but probing eyes that seem to see straight through whatever facade you're trying to maintain. Maya, she says, her voice steady and warm despite the late hour. You mentioned you called your sister. Is she on her way? I turn my phone face down on the scratchy hospital blanket. She's busy. Dr. Martinez makes a note, and something about the way her pen moves across the paper feels significant. Like she's documenting more than just my words. She's been writing things down for the past hour, ever since the paramedics brought me in after I collapsed during what I thought was a heart attack, but turned out to be the most severe panic attack of my life. Can you tell me about your support system? Who do you usually turn to during difficult times? The question hangs in the air like smoke. I've been asking myself the same thing for months now, ever since my anxiety spiraled from manageable background noise into something that ambushes me in grocery stores, during work presentations, and apparently now in my own apartment at 2 a.m. Rachel and I have always been close, I hear myself saying, though the words feel hollow even as they leave my mouth. We're only 18 months apart. Growing up, everyone called us Irish twins. Dr. Martinez nods, waiting for me to continue. There's something about her presence that makes it impossible to hide behind the usual platitudes. She's in graduate school at UT. Architecture. She's incredibly talented, very social. Everyone loves Rachel. I'm busy right now. School is demanding. What time did you call her? Around 3 a.m. And she didn't answer? I glance at my phone again, still no response. No. Dr. Martinez writes something else down. I wonder what kind of notes crisis counselors take. Are they documenting my sister's absence? The fact that I'm here alone while my emergency contact is apparently at a party? Maya, I want you to know that what you're experiencing tonight is serious, and you are right to seek help. Panic attacks of this severity can be incredibly frightening. She leans forward slightly. How long have you been dealing with anxiety? The question opens something inside me that I've been keeping carefully sealed. It started about 6 months ago. Small things at first. Feeling overwhelmed at work, having trouble sleeping. But lately... Pause. Lately, it feels like I'm drowning in my own life. What changed 6 months ago? I think back to February when everything seemed to shift. I got promoted to senior marketing coordinator at Pinnacle Digital. It should have been good news. I've been working toward it for 2 years. But it didn't feel good. It felt like I'd been handed someone else's life. Suddenly, I was managing a team of 6 people, handling client presentations, staying until 9 p.m. most nights, and everyone kept congratulating me, telling me how proud they were. I felt like a fraud, like I was going to mess everything up, and they'd realize I didn't deserve it. Dr. Martinez nods knowingly. Imposter syndrome is common with big life changes. How did your family react to the promotion? This is where the story gets complicated. My parents were thrilled. Dad actually cried when I told him. He's a mechanic, and Mom works at the elementary school cafeteria. Neither of them went to college. They've always been so proud that both Rachel and I are making something of ourselves.
And Rachel? I remember the phone call when I shared the news.
Rachel had been in the middle of finals, stressed about her thesis project. She said congratulations, but she was distracted. She had a critique the next day with some famous architect visiting the program. She couldn't really talk. How did that make you feel? Disappointed, I guess. But I understood. Her program is competitive. She's working toward something really important, too. Dr. Martinez makes another note. I'm starting to recognize a pattern in her questions, the way she's gently probing the spaces between what I'm saying and what I'm not saying. My phone buzzes. For a split second, hope flares in my chest. Maybe Rachel finally saw my messages. Maybe she's calling to say she's on her way. It's a notification from DoorDash. A promotional email about late-night delivery options. The irony isn't lost on me. Even DoorDash is more responsive than my sister right now. Maya, can you walk me through what happened tonight? What triggered this panic attack? I close my eyes and try to piece together the sequence of events that led me here. I couldn't sleep. I've been having insomnia for weeks, so I was lying in bed, scrolling through work emails on my phone, and I saw one from my boss about a client presentation on Monday. What about the presentation concerned you? Everything. The client is this huge tech startup that could make or break our agency's year. If I mess this up, I trail off, feeling my heart rate spike even thinking about it. I started imagining all the ways it could go wrong. What if I freeze up? What if they ask questions I can't answer? What if they decide to go with our competitor? And then, my chest started getting tight. I couldn't catch my breath. My hands went numb and I started sweating even though my apartment was cold. I thought I was having a heart attack. I open my eyes and look at Dr. Martinez. I've never felt anything like that before. It was like my body was convinced I was dying. That must have been terrifying. I called 911. The paramedics were amazing. They talked me through breathing exercises while they checked my vitals. That's when they explained it was likely a panic attack and suggested I come to the hospital for evaluation. And that's when you called Rachel? In the ambulance. I called her first before I even texted my parents. She's always been my person, you know? When we were kids and I had nightmares, I'd crawl into her bed. When I was nervous about my first job interview, she stayed on the phone with me the whole drive there. My voice gets smaller. I thought this would be different. This felt like an emergency. Dr. Martinez sets down her pen and looks at me directly. Maya, I want to be clear about something. What you experienced tonight was an emergency. You were right to seek help, and you were right to reach out to the people you trust. The fact that you're here, getting the support you need, shows tremendous strength. Something about her words makes my throat tight. When was the last time someone told me I was strong? When was the last time someone validated my instincts instead of telling me I was overreacting? Can I ask you something? Of course. All those notes you've been taking, are they official? Like, is this going on some kind of record? Dr. Martinez nods slowly. Yes, I'm documenting this crisis intervention session. It's part of your medical record, and it helps ensure continuity of care if you need follow-up treatment. But Maya, I want you to know that seeking mental health treatment isn't something to be ashamed of. It's healthcare. Will my family be able to see what you've written? Not without your permission. You're over 18, so your medical information is confidential. Why do you ask? I'm not sure how to explain the knot of anxiety in my stomach about Rachel finding out I was here, about my parents knowing how badly I've been struggling. They've all been so proud of my success, my independence, my ability to handle whatever life throws at me. I've always been the responsible one. Rachel's the creative, artistic one who gets to have breakdowns and dramatic moments because that's just how artists are. I'm the practical one who has it all together, the one who doesn't need help. And how's that working out for you?
A lot of love and effort went into bringing this story to life. If you're enjoying it, we'd be so grateful if you'd subscribe to our channel. Now, back to where we left off. The question lands like a gentle punch. Not well, clearly, considering I'm sitting in a psychiatric evaluation room at 4 a.m. with no one coming to check on me. My phone buzzes again. This time, it's a text from my mom. "Hi, honey. Hope you're having a good week. Dad and I are thinking of driving up to see you next weekend. Let us know if you're free. Love you." The timestamp shows she sent it 3 hours ago, before all of this happened. My parents still think I'm asleep in my bed, probably dreaming about my successful career and my bright future. They have no idea their high-achieving daughter is falling apart. "Dr. Martinez?" I say, surprised by the steadiness in my own voice. "I think I need more help than just tonight." She smiles, and it's the first genuine warmth I've felt in hours. "I think you're absolutely right." And Maya, recognizing that you need support isn't a failure. It's the first step toward getting better. As she reaches for a fresh sheet of paper to start documenting our next steps, I realize something has shifted in the last few hours. For the first time in months, I'm not trying to convince someone I'm fine. I'm not performing competence or strength or having it all together. I'm just being honest about how lost I feel. And somehow that feels like the most important thing I've done in a very long time. The discharge papers crinkle in my hands as I unlock my apartment door at 7:30 a.m. Dr. Martinez scheduled me for a follow-up appointment with the hospital's outpatient therapist in 3 days. Plus, she gave me a referral to a psychiatrist who specializes in anxiety disorders. The morning light streaming through my windows feels surreal after spending the night under fluorescent hospital lighting. My phone shows 12 missed calls from my parents and 4 voicemails. I must have forgotten to silence it during the evaluation. No messages from Rachel. I sink into my couch and dial my parents back, dreading the conversation I'm about to have. "Maya? Honey, what happened? Your mom and I have been worried sick." Dad's voice is tight with panic. "I'm okay now. I had a panic attack last night and went to the emergency room to be safe. I'm home now." "A panic attack? But you've never... Why didn't you call us immediately?" The question stings, because I did call someone immediately, just not them. "I didn't want to wake you up. It was the middle of the night." "Maya Elizabeth Chen, you call us if you're in the hospital, period. We don't care what time it is." Mom's voice comes through on speakers, sharp with worry and reproach. "We're driving up there right now." "No, please don't. I just need to rest today. The doctor said it's normal to feel drained after something like this." There's a pause, and I can practically hear them exchanging glances. "Did you call Rachel?" Mom asks. The question hits exactly where it hurts. "I tried." "What do you mean you tried?" "I called her from the ambulance. She didn't answer." Another pause, longer this time. "She's probably asleep, honey," Dad says, but his voice lacks conviction. "You know how college kids are with their phones." Except Rachel isn't a college kid anymore. She's 26, same as me, and she's never been asleep when something important was happening. After reassuring my parents for another 20 minutes that I'm truly okay and promising to call them later, I hang up the phone and stare at it. Rachel's contact photo smiles back at me from our last text exchange. A selfie of us at her graduation party 2 years ago, both of us laughing at something ridiculous our cousin had said. I scroll up through our message history, looking for something I'm not sure I want to find. March 15th. Me texting about landing the Pinnacle digital promotion. Rachel, "Congrats. Can't talk now. Critique at 9 a.m. Catch up soon. February 8th. Me sharing photos from a work conference in Denver. Read, but never responded. January 22nd. Me asking if she wanted to grab dinner when she was in town for the weekend. Super busy with mom and dad stuff. Rain check. December 18th. Me sending her an article about anxiety in high-achieving professionals, thinking she might find it interesting given the stress she's under. Read, but no response.
November 30th. Me checking in after she posted about struggling with her thesis advisor. Rachel, thanks. Handling it, though. The pattern becomes clearer the further back I scroll. Over the past 8 months, our conversations have shifted from the easy back and forth we maintained throughout college to something that feels increasingly one-sided. I'm the one initiating contact, sharing news, asking questions. Rachel responds just enough to avoid seeming rude, but she's not really engaging. When did this happen? When did I become the sister who reaches out, and she became the sister who tolerates being reached out to? I remember a conversation we had during Christmas break, back when everything still felt normal between us. We were sitting in our childhood bedroom at our parents' house in San Antonio, and Rachel was showing me her portfolio for graduate school applications. I'm scared I'm not good enough, she'd admitted, flipping through pages of architectural drawings that looked impossibly sophisticated to my untrained eye. Everyone in these programs has been preparing for this their whole lives. I feel like I'm catching up. Are you kidding? Look at this work! You're incredible, Rach! She smiled, but it was strained. Maya, you don't understand. You've always known exactly what you wanted to do. Marketing, business, climbing the corporate ladder. You had internships lined up by sophomore year. I'm 24, and I'm just figuring out that I want to design buildings. That doesn't make you behind. That makes you thoughtful. It makes me a late bloomer who's competing with people who've been drafting blueprints since they were 12. I remember feeling confused by her insecurity. Rachel had always been the confident one, the one who dove into new experiences without second-guessing herself. She was the sister who tried out for the school play on a whim and landed the lead, who taught herself guitar by watching YouTube videos, who could walk into any social situation and immediately find her tribe. But looking back now, I wonder if I missed something important in that conversation. While I was trying to reassure her about her talent, maybe what she really needed was acknowledgement that this transition was hard, that starting over at 24 felt scary, even for someone as naturally gifted as she was. My laptop chimes with an email notification. Without thinking, I open it and find myself staring at the work inbox that triggered last night's panic attack. 47 new emails since yesterday evening. 3 marked urgent from clients. A calendar reminder that my presentation to the tech startup is in exactly 72 hours. My chest tightens, and I recognize the warning signs Dr. Martinez taught me to watch for. Shallow breathing, racing thoughts, the feeling that I'm about to be buried under an avalanche of responsibilities I can't handle. I close the laptop and focus on the breathing exercises the crisis counselor showed me. 4 counts in, hold for 4, 4 counts out. Repeat until the world stops spinning. As my heart rate slows, I realize something that should have been obvious months ago. I've been drowning professionally for almost as long as Rachel and I have been drifting apart. The promotion that was supposed to be the culmination of everything I'd worked for has actually been the beginning of my unraveling. But instead of reaching out for help, I've been doing what I always do, putting my head down, working harder, telling everyone I'm fine. The same way I've been handling Rachel's increasing distance, pretending not to notice, making excuses for her, taking responsibility for maintaining our relationship single-handedly. My phone buzzes with a text from my college roommate, Jessica. Hey, stranger, saw on your LinkedIn that you got the promotion. We should celebrate. Free for drinks this weekend? I stare at the message, trying to remember the last time I had drinks with a friend, the last time I did anything social that wasn't work-related.
somewhere between taking on my new role and trying to prove I deserved it, I'd stopped making time for the relationships that actually fed my soul. Jessica and I used to talk every few weeks during the first couple of years after graduation. She'd moved to Chicago for a job in nonprofit development, and we'd share stories about navigating post-college life, dating disasters, and figuring out who we wanted to become as adults. But when work started consuming more of my mental space, those conversations became less frequent, then less meaningful, then almost non-existent. I scroll through Jessica's Instagram and see photos of her at an art gallery opening last week, hiking with friends in Michigan, volunteering at a food bank. Her life looks full and connected in a way that makes my chest ache with recognition of what I've been missing. Rachel isn't the only relationship I've let deteriorate. She's just the one whose absence hurts the most because she's supposed to be my person, the one who shows up no matter what. Except she didn't show up. And maybe, if I'm being honest, she hasn't been showing up for a while now. I've just been too busy trying to be the perfect sister, the perfect employee, the perfect daughter, to notice that I was the only one still trying. My phone rings, and for a split second I think it might be Rachel finally calling back. Instead, it's my boss, Richard.
Maya, I just got your email about taking a sick day. Everything okay? I'd completely forgotten about the automated message I'd sent from the hospital. I'm fine. Just need a day to recover from a minor medical issue. Good, good. Listen, I hate to bother you when you're not feeling well, but the Innovate Tech presentation got moved up to tomorrow afternoon. I know you've been preparing for weeks, but they want to see the full campaign mock-ups and the Q4 strategy breakdown. The room starts to spin again. Tomorrow? But I thought we had until Monday. I know. Client changed their timeline. Can you handle it? The question hangs in the air like a challenge. Can I handle it? Can I pull together a presentation that could determine my entire career trajectory while I'm barely holding myself together? Can I prove that last night was just a blip, an anomaly, not a sign that I'm fundamentally not cut out for this level of responsibility? Of course, I hear myself saying. I'll be ready. Fantastic! Knew I could count on you, Maya. Feel better. After he hangs up, I sit in my quiet apartment and realize that nobody, not Richard, not my parents, not Rachel, actually asked me how I'm feeling. They asked if I'm okay, if I can handle things, if I need them to do anything. But no one asked about the terror that woke me up at 2 a.m., or the way my body convinced itself it was dying, or the loneliness that feels like a physical weight in my chest. Maybe it's because I've never given anyone the chance to ask. Maybe I've been so busy being the sister who has it all together, the employee who never complains, the daughter who makes everyone proud, that I've forgotten how to be the person who sometimes needs help. Dr. Martinez's words echo in my mind. Recognizing that you need support isn't a failure. I look at Jessica's text again, then type back, I'd love to catch up. Fair warning, though, I might need to talk about some heavy stuff. Are you free for a real conversation? Her response comes back almost immediately. Always. Want to talk now? For the first time in months, I say yes to someone asking if I need something. And for the first time since last night's panic attack, I feel like maybe I'm not drowning alone. The call with Jessica lasts 3 hours. I tell her everything. The panic attack, the hospital, Rachel's silence, the impossible presentation deadline, the months of feeling like I'm drowning in my own success. When I finish, there's a long pause. Maya, how long have you been carrying all of this alone? The question cracks something open in my chest. I don't know. A while, I guess. And when you called Rachel from the ambulance, what were you hoping for? I stare at the ceiling of my apartment, trying to articulate something I haven't fully admitted to myself. I wanted her to drop everything and come. I wanted her to be scared for me. My voice breaks. I wanted to matter enough for her to show up. You do matter enough. She's the one who's not showing up. It's such a simple distinction, but it hits me like a revelation. I've been assuming that Rachel's absence means I'm not worth showing up for, rather than considering that maybe Rachel has her own issues that have nothing to do with my worth. Jessica, can I ask you something? When we were in college, you used to call me when you were having a hard time, remember? When you were stressed about your senior thesis, or when you broke up with David, you'd call me crying and I'd talk you through it. Of course, you were always so good at that. But I never called you crying. I never called you when I was falling apart. There's another pause. Maya, did you ever fall apart in college? The question stops me cold, because I realize the answer is no, not really. I had stressful moments, disappointments, the occasional bad day, but I always handled things internally, worked through problems by myself, presented solutions rather than sharing struggles. I thought that made me stronger, I say, more independent. Maybe it just made you lonelier. After we hang up, I sit with that observation for a long time. Have I been so afraid of being a burden that I've never given anyone the chance to truly know me? Have I been so busy performing competence for so long that even my closest relationships are built on the facade rather than the reality? I think about Dr. Martinez and her careful documentation last night. She was the first person in months who had seen me completely unraveled, and instead of trying to fix me or offering empty reassurances, she had simply witnessed it and validated that it was real, that it mattered. My laptop sits closed on the coffee table, 47 urgent emails waiting inside. The presentation that could make or break my career looms tomorrow afternoon. But for the first time in months, I'm not rushing to open it. I'm not immediately shifting into crisis management mode. Instead, I'm thinking about something Dr. Martinez had asked me. What would happen if you couldn't give the presentation tomorrow? At the time, the question had seemed absurd. Of course I had to give the presentation. My job depended on it. My team was counting on me. Richard had trusted me with this opportunity. But sitting here now, I realize I'd never actually considered what would genuinely happen if I failed. Would Richard fire me? Would my team lose their jobs? Would Pinnacle Digital collapse? Or would Richard reschedule the presentation? Would my team step up to help? Would life somehow continue? The thought feels revolutionary and terrifying at the same time. My phone buzzes with a text from Rachel. Hey, sorry I missed your calls last night. Was at a gallery opening that ran super late. Everything okay? I stare at the message for 10 minutes before responding. 24 hours ago, I would have immediately downplayed everything, told her I was fine, maybe made a joke about being dramatic. I would have protected her from the reality of what happened because that's what I always do. Smooth things over, make everything easier for everyone else. Instead, I type, I had a severe panic attack and was hospitalized. I called you from the ambulance at 3 a.m. because I was scared and needed support. You posted Instagram stories from a party instead of checking your phone. I hit send before I can second-guess myself. Her response comes immediately. Oh my God, Maya, I'm so sorry. I had my phone on silent. Are you okay? Do you need me to drive up? I'm home now. But I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Of course. Do you want to be in my life, or do you feel obligated to be? The typing indicator appears and disappears several times. Finally, what kind of question is that? You're my sister. That's not an answer. Another long pause. Then, Maya, you've never needed me. Even when we were kids, you had everything figured out. You're the successful one, the one who landed the dream job and the promotion and the perfect apartment. I've been struggling just to get through graduate school while you're conquering the corporate world. What could I possibly offer you? I read her message 3 times, trying to process what she's really saying. She thinks I don't need her. She thinks my success means I'm beyond requiring support. She thinks my competence equals invulnerability. Rachel, I called you from an ambulance at 3 a.m. because I was having a mental health crisis. Does that sound like someone who has everything figured out? I know, I should have answered. I didn't think it was that serious. You always handle everything. What if I can't handle everything anymore?
What if I never could? This time the pause stretches so long, I wonder if she's going to respond at all. I don't know how to be the sister you need, she finally writes. I've never been good at the practical stuff, the responsible stuff. That's your thing. Something crystallizes for me in that moment. Rachel and I have been playing roles for so long that we've forgotten we're actually people. I'm the responsible one who never needs help. She is the creative one who's allowed to be scattered and emotional, but isn't expected to provide stability for others. These roles served us once, maybe when we were children trying to differentiate ourselves and find our places in the family. But they've become prisons now, trapping us both in limited versions of ourselves. Rachel, what if we tried something different? What if I stopped pretending to have everything together and you stopped pretending you're too scattered to be someone I can lean on? What do you mean? I mean, I'm falling apart professionally and personally, and last night was just the moment it became impossible to hide. I mean, I've been having panic attacks for weeks and I haven't told anyone because I thought it meant I was weak. I mean, I need my sister, not the role you think you're supposed to play. The typing indicator appears and disappears several minutes. When her response finally comes, it's shorter than I expected. Can I call you? Yes. The phone rings 30 seconds later.
Maya? Rachel's voice is different than it's been in months. Softer, more present. I'm scared I've been a terrible sister. The admission hangs between us like a bridge we've both been afraid to cross. I've been scared I'm not worth being a good sister to, I reply. God, how did we get here? She sounds like she might be crying. When did we stop being real with each other? I think about all the conversations we've had over the past year, the careful updates and surface-level check-ins. When did we start curating our relationship like social media posts, showing only the highlights and hiding the struggles? I think it started when I got the promotion, I say slowly. I was so overwhelmed, but I thought admitting that would mean I didn't deserve it. So I started pretending everything was great. And you were dealing with your own stuff in grad school, but I was so wrapped up in my own performance that I didn't make space for your struggles either. I felt like I couldn't complain about school stress to someone who was crushing it in the real world, Rachel admits. And you seem so busy and important. I didn't want to bother you with my problems. So we both stopped telling each other the truth. Yeah. And then last night, when you really needed me, her voice breaks. Maya, I was at that gallery opening, but I saw your call. I saw your texts. I panicked. I didn't know what to do or say. I've never seen you really fall apart before. I was afraid I'd make it worse. Honesty is devastating and healing at the same time. You made it worse by not responding at all. I know, and I hate myself for it. I kept thinking you'd figure it out like you always do, that you'd be okay by morning and we'd laugh about how dramatic the whole thing was. Rachel, what if I'm not okay by morning? What if this is bigger than one bad night? Another pause. Then I learn how to be the sister you need me to be, starting right now. What does that mean? It means I'm getting in my car and driving to Dallas. It means I'm canceling my classes tomorrow. It means I stop hiding behind the idea that you don't need me and start showing up like the sister I want to be. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Maya, I've been using your independence as an excuse to be selfish. I've been so wrapped up in my own insecurities that I forgot you're human too. You're allowed to need people. You're allowed to fall apart. And I'm allowed to be someone you can count on. I'm crying now, ugly tears that feel like they're releasing months of held breath. What about your classes, your thesis? My thesis will still be there next week. My sister having a mental health crisis is more important than my architectural history seminar. For the first time since the panic attack started, I feel like I can breathe fully. Not because Rachel is coming to rescue me, but because she's choosing to be present. She's choosing me over her other obligations, the way I've always secretly hoped she would, but never asked for. Rach, yeah?
I'm scared about tomorrow. I have this presentation that got moved up, and I don't think I can handle it. I don't think I can handle any of this anymore. Then we'll figure it out together. That's what sisters do, right? I don't know. We've never tried it before. She laughs, and it sounds like the sister I remember from childhood. Well, maybe it's time we learned. After we hang up, I sit in my apartment and feel something I haven't experienced in months. I'm not alone with this. Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever comes next, I don't have to figure it out by myself. For the first time since the promotion that was supposed to change my life, I feel like maybe change doesn't have to mean carrying everything solo. Maybe growing up doesn't mean growing isolated. Maybe asking for help isn't the end of independence. Maybe it's the beginning of something better. Rachel arrives at 11 p.m., carrying a duffel bag and a grocery sack filled with my favorite comfort foods from our childhood. Cheetos, chocolate chip cookies, and the fancy hot chocolate mix Mom used to make when we were sick. She looks exhausted from the 4-hour drive, but her eyes are clear and focused in a way I haven't seen in months. Okay, she says, setting everything down and turning to face me. What do we need to do about tomorrow?
The directness surprises me. This isn't the scattered, artistic Rachel who usually deflects serious conversations with humor or changes the subject when things get too heavy. This is someone who drove through the night because her sister needed her. I don't know if I can give the presentation, I admit. Every time I think about standing in front of those executives, my chest gets tight. What if I have another panic attack in the middle of it? Then you have a panic attack in the middle of it, and we deal with whatever happens next. Rachel, this isn't just any presentation. This client could be worth millions to the agency. If you mess this up, the world doesn't end. She sits beside me on the couch. Maya, what's the worst case scenario, really? I've been avoiding this question for weeks, but with Rachel here, it feels safer to explore. Richard loses confidence in me. Maybe I get demoted or fired. The team suffers because I couldn't handle the pressure. And then what? Then, I don't know. I'd have to find another job. My parents would be disappointed. Everyone would know I failed. Would they? The question catches me off guard. What do you mean? Would everyone really know you failed, or would they know that you're human? That you took on more than you could handle and had to step back? I realize I've been catastrophizing not just the presentation itself, but the meaning of any potential failure. In my mind, struggling equals weakness, and weakness equals being exposed as a fraud. Maybe we should call your boss, Rachel suggests. Tell him you need to postpone because you're dealing with a medical issue. I can't do that. He's counting on me. Maya, you were in the hospital 24 hours ago. That's not making excuses. That's being responsible about your health. The idea feels simultaneously reasonable and impossible. Richard hired me because I could handle pressure. He promoted me because I delivered results under tight deadlines. Asking for an extension feels like admitting I'm not the person he thought I was. But maybe that's exactly what I need to admit. What if he says no? I ask. Then we figure out plan B. But Maya, you're never going to know unless you ask. At 7 a.m., I call Richard from my kitchen while Rachel makes coffee. My hands shake as I dial, but her presence steadies me somehow. Richard, it's Maya. I need to talk to you about the Innovate Tech presentation. Sure, what's up? Ready to knock their socks off today? Actually, I need to request a postponement. I was hospitalized 2 nights ago for a panic attack, and I'm not in a condition to give my best performance today. The silence stretches so long, I wonder if the call dropped. You were hospitalized? His voice shifts from jovial boss mode to something more human. Maya, why didn't you tell me this yesterday when I called? Because I thought I could push through it, but I can't. I need more time to recover and to properly prepare. Of course we'll reschedule. Are you getting help? Professional help? Yes. I have appointments set up with a therapist and a psychiatrist. Good. That's good. Maya, I have to ask, how long have you been struggling with this? Because looking back, I'm wondering if I've been pushing you too hard since the promotion. It started a few months ago. The workload, the pressure. I think I've been overwhelmed for a while, but didn't know how to say it. Why didn't you come to me? Because you promoted me to handle pressure. I thought admitting I was struggling meant I wasn't cut out for the job. Richard sighs heavily. Maya, you promoted me because you're talented and hardworking, not because you're superhuman. We should have had check-ins about how you were adjusting. That's on me as your manager. The conversation continues for another 10 minutes, and by the end, not only is the presentation postponed until next week, but Richard has also suggested I take the rest of the week off to focus on my health. He mentions the company's employee assistance program and asks if there's anything the team can do to redistribute some of my workload. When I hang up, Rachel is watching me with an expression I can't quite read. What? I ask. You just advocated for yourself. You asked for what you needed, and the world didn't end. She's right, but the relief is complicated. Part of me feels validated that Richard was understanding. Another part feels angry that I spent months suffering in silence when a single honest conversation could have helped. Why was that so hard? I ask. Because you've been trained to believe that needing help means failure, Rachel says. We both have, actually. Think about how mom and dad raised us. Figure it out. Be independent. Don't be a burden on others. I remember countless childhood moments where asking for help was met with suggestions to try harder, be more resourceful, solve problems ourselves. Independence was praised. Neediness was gently discouraged. They meant well, I say. They did, but good intentions don't always create healthy patterns. My phone buzzes with a text from my teammate Sarah. Heard you postponed the presentation. Hope you're feeling better. FYI, the team has been worried about you for weeks. You've seemed really stressed. Anything we can help with? Then another from Marcus. Dude, take care of yourself. We've got your back. And another from Jennifer. Maya, I've been dealing with anxiety for years. Happy to chat if you want to talk to someone who gets it. I showed the messages to Rachel, who smiles knowingly. Turns out people actually care about you, not just your productivity. I didn't realize they'd noticed I was struggling. You've been holding it together on the surface, but people who work with you every day can probably sense when something's off. The afternoon brings a call from Dr. Martinez's office, confirming my therapy appointment for tomorrow. Then another call from Dr. Susan Patel, the psychiatrist, wanting to schedule an initial consultation. Both conversations are professional but warm, focused on creating a treatment plan rather than just managing a crisis. As evening approaches, Rachel and I order Thai food and settle in to watch terrible reality TV, something we haven't done together in years. But around 9 p.m., my phone rings with a call that makes my stomach drop. Maya, honey, it's Mom. Dad and I have been talking, and we're concerned about this episode you had. We think maybe you should come home for a while. Take a break from all this career pressure. Mom, I'm not having an episode. I'm dealing with an anxiety disorder, and I'm getting professional help. But sweetheart, maybe this job is just too much for you. There's no shame in admitting you're not cut out for corporate life. You could always... Mom, stop. The firmness in my voice surprises even me. I'm not quitting my job. I'm learning to manage my mental health so I can do my job better. But if the stress is making you sick, the stress is something I'm addressing with medical professionals. This isn't about my career being wrong for me. This is about me learning better coping strategies. There's a pause, and I can practically hear my parents conferring in whispers. We just think maybe you've taken on too much, Dad's voice comes through. We always were our overachiever, but sometimes there's such a thing as too much success too fast. The conversation continues for another 15 minutes, with my parents cycling through various versions of the same suggestion. Maybe I should scale back, move home temporarily, consider a less demanding job, focus on my health by reducing my ambitions. After I hang up, Rachel looks at me with something like admiration. You didn't give in, she says. Given to what? The family script. The one where struggling means you should lower your expectations instead of getting better support.
I hadn't thought about it that way, but she's right. My parents' instinct is to solve my anxiety by removing the things that trigger it, rather than helping me develop tools to handle challenge more effectively. They're scared, I realize. They don't understand mental health treatment. They think anxiety means I'm fragile. And you just proved you're not.
That night, lying in my own bed with my sister asleep in the guest room, I feel something I haven't experienced in months. I'm not alone with this anymore. Not just because Rachel is physically here, but because I've started telling the truth about what's happening to me. The resistance is real. From my own fears, from my parents' well-meaning but limiting advice, from years of conditioning that tells me to handle everything myself. But for the first time, the resistance feels manageable. Tomorrow, I start therapy. Next week, I give the presentation, but with support systems in place. And tonight, I sleep knowing that asking for help didn't make me weak. It made me honest. That feels like progress. My first therapy appointment with Dr. Lauren Webb takes place in a sun-filled office that smells like lavender and feels nothing like the sterile hospital room where I met Dr. Martinez. Rachel drives me there, not because I can't drive myself, but because we've decided that showing up for each other looks different now. Before we dive into treatment strategies, Dr. Webb says, settling into her chair with a warm smile, I'd like to understand what brought you to seek help now. Dr. Martinez shared some notes from your crisis intervention, but I want to hear your perspective. I tell her about the panic attack, the hospital visit, Rachel's absence and eventual presence. But as I'm talking, I realize the story doesn't start there. Actually, I think it started 6 months ago with my promotion. Or maybe it started earlier than that, and the promotion just made it impossible to ignore. Tell me about earlier. For the next 40 minutes, I find myself sharing things I've never said out loud. How I've always felt like I needed to earn my place in every room I entered. How success felt more like relief than joy. Relief that I'd proved myself worthy of existing. How I'd measured my value by my productivity for so long that I'd forgotten there might be other metrics. Maya, you mentioned measuring your value by productivity. What do you think would happen if you weren't productive for a while? The question sends a jolt of anxiety through my chest. I don't know. I've never not been productive. Even when you were a child? I think back to elementary school, middle school, high school. Even then, I was the one who finished homework early, helped other kids with projects, volunteered for extra assignments. When had productivity become so central to my identity? I think I learned early that being helpful and accomplished made people proud of me, and making people proud felt like love. Dr. Webb nods, making notes. That's a common pattern. Achievement becomes a way to secure attachment. But what happens when achievement becomes unsustainable? You end up in the ER at 3 a.m. Exactly. She introduces me to concepts I've never heard of. High-functioning anxiety, perfectionism as a trauma response, the difference between self-worth and self-efficacy. She gives me homework, not the kind I'm used to, but exercises in mindfulness, boundaries, and identifying my emotional needs in real time. I want you to practice something this week, she says as our session winds down. When someone asks how you're doing, try giving an honest answer instead of an automatic "I'm fine." Start small, but practice telling the truth about your internal experience. After therapy, Rachel and I stopped for lunch at a cafe near her old campus. She's been unusually quiet since we left Dr. Webb's office. What are you thinking about? I ask. Honestly, I'm thinking about how much of what you said there applies to me, too. What do you mean? Rachel fidgets with her napkin, tearing it into small pieces. This whole thing about earning love through performance? Maya, I've been doing the opposite version of that my entire life. You earned love by being perfect. I earned attention by being the family disaster. The observation hits me sideways. What? Think about it. When did our parents pay the most attention to me? When I was struggling, when I couldn't figure out college applications, when I was stressed about graduate school, when I had boy drama or friend drama or career confusion. Being a mess was my way of staying relevant. I had never considered this perspective. But as she continues talking, I see the pattern she's describing.
Rachel's crises always brought family focus, emergency phone calls, parents dropping everything to help. Meanwhile, my successes were celebrated briefly, and then everyone moved on, assuming I had everything handled. So, you've been afraid to get too stable because then no one would need you anymore?
And you've been afraid to admit instability because then no one would respect you anymore. We sit with this realization while our food gets cold. Two sisters, trapped in complementary but equally limiting roles. Rachel, what if we both tried something different? Like what? Like, you get to be competent and stable when you want to be, and I get to be confused and needy when I need to be. She laughs, but it's not dismissive. That sounds terrifying and amazing. Yeah, it does. That afternoon, I dive into preparing for the rescheduled Innovate Tech presentation with a completely different approach. Instead of trying to anticipate every possible question and prepare perfect answers, I focus on creating a solid foundation and accepting that some things will be improvised in the moment. Rachel sits at my kitchen table working on her thesis, while I spread presentation materials across the living room. It's strangely comforting to work in parallel like this, each of us focused on our own challenges, but not alone with them. Around 4 p.m., my phone rings. It's my college friend Jessica calling from Chicago. "How are you doing?" she asks, and I want a real answer, not a Maya answer. I laugh, remembering Dr. Webb's homework assignment. I'm anxious about my presentation next week, but I'm also proud of myself for asking for help when I needed it. I'm learning things about myself in therapy that are uncomfortable but important. And I'm grateful my sister is here, even though part of me still feels guilty for needing her. Wow, that was actually honest. I'm practicing. Turns out honesty is harder than I thought. It gets easier, Maya. Can I tell you something? I've always been a little intimidated by how much you seem to have it all together. It's actually a relief to hear that you struggle too. After we hang up, I realize something profound. Being honest about my struggles hasn't made people think less of me. If anything, it's made them feel closer to me. Jessica, my coworkers, even Richard, everyone has responded to my vulnerability with more warmth, not less. The next few days establish a new rhythm. Morning therapy appointments with Dr. Webb, where I learn techniques for managing anxiety in real time. Afternoon work sessions preparing for the presentation, but with built-in breaks and Rachel's help in testing my talking points. Evening check-ins with myself about how I'm actually feeling instead of how I think I should be feeling. On Thursday, I have my first appointment with Dr. Patel, the psychiatrist. She's brisk and thorough, asking detailed questions about my symptoms, family history, and how anxiety shows up in my body. After an hour of assessment, she recommends a low-dose anti-anxiety medication to help with the physical symptoms while I develop coping strategies in therapy. Think of this as a tool, not a solution, she explains, like glasses for someone who's nearsighted. The glasses don't cure the vision problem, but they make it easier to function while you're working on other aspects of your health. The medication conversation brings up feelings I wasn't expecting. Relief that there might be chemical support for what feels like such an overwhelming internal experience. But also shame. Why can't I handle this on my own? Why do I need pharmaceutical help to do what other people seem to manage naturally? I share these feelings with Rachel that evening as we cook dinner together. Maya, you wouldn't feel ashamed about taking medication for diabetes or high blood pressure, would you? No, of course not. So why is brain chemistry different? It's such a simple reframe, but it shifts something fundamental in how I think about treatment. My anxiety isn't a character flaw or a sign of weakness. It's a medical condition that responds to medical intervention, just like any other health issue. On Friday, exactly 1 week after my panic attack, I return to work for the first time. My team greets me with genuine warmth and asks me how I'm feeling, not in the polite, surface way people usually ask, but with real concern and interest in my honest answer. Sarah, my closest colleague, pulls me aside during lunch. Maya, I'm really glad you're taking care of yourself. I've been wanting to tell you for months that you seemed overwhelmed, but I didn't know how to bring it up without seeming like I was criticizing your work. I wish you had said something. Really?
Really? I thought I was hiding it well, but apparently everyone could see I was struggling except me.
That's not uncommon, Marcus adds, joining our conversation. My wife went through something similar with postpartum anxiety. She was convinced she was fooling everyone, but looking back, we all knew something was off. We just didn't know how to help. The conversation continues, and I learn that Jennifer has been in therapy for 2 years, that Marcus takes medication for depression, that Sarah practices meditation to manage work stress. My team, it turns out, is full of people who understand mental health challenges because they faced their own. Why don't we ever talk about this stuff? I ask. Because work culture makes it feel unsafe, Jennifer says. Everyone's afraid that admitting you're struggling will hurt your career prospects. But what if it didn't have to be that way? What do you mean? What if we normalized checking in with each other about our actual well-being, not just our project deadlines? The idea feels revolutionary in its simplicity. What if workplace mental health wasn't something we whispered about or hid, but something we supported each other through openly? By the end of the week, I've established what Dr. Webb calls sustainable systems. Morning meditation before checking emails, lunch breaks that involve actually leaving my desk, end-of-day rituals that help me transition from work mode to personal time, regular check-ins with Rachel about how I'm feeling, not just what I'm doing. The Innovate Tech presentation is scheduled for Monday morning, but instead of spending the weekend in panicked preparation, I spend Saturday hiking with Rachel and Sunday having brunch with Jessica, who drives down from Chicago specifically to see me. You seem different, Jessica observes as we're walking around a farmer's market. More present. I'm trying to be. Turns out I've spent years living in my head, planning for future scenarios or reviewing past performances. I'm learning to actually experience the moment I'm in. How's that going? It's harder than it sounds, but also more interesting than I expected. Sunday evening, as Rachel packs for her drive back to Austin, we sit on my couch and reflect on the week. Thank you for coming, I say. Not just for the crisis, but for staying to help me figure out what comes next. Thank you for letting me help. I didn't realize how much I needed to feel useful to you in a real way. What happens now? How do we stay connected like this when you're 4 hours away? We keep telling each other the truth, she says simply. We keep showing up, even when it's inconvenient. We keep being sisters instead of playing the roles we think sisters are supposed to play. That night, I fall asleep feeling something I haven't experienced in months, anticipation for tomorrow. Not because everything is fixed, but because I'm no longer carrying everything alone. The presentation is still coming. My anxiety is still real. My work is still demanding. But now I have tools, support systems, and most importantly, permission to be human while I handle it all. For the first time in my adult life, that feels like enough. Monday morning arrives with the kind of crisp October air that usually energizes me, but today my stomach churns as I walk into the Pinnacle Digital offices. The Innovate Tech presentation is scheduled for 2 p.m., and despite all my preparation and new coping strategies, the stakes feel enormous. Maya, Richard's voice booms across the lobby as I badge in. Ready for the big day? For a split second, I almost give him my old automatic response. A confident smile and enthusiastic, absolutely. Instead, I pause and check in with myself the way Dr. Webb taught me. I'm nervous, I say honestly, but I'm prepared, and I have good support systems in place if I need them. Richard's expression shifts slightly, becoming more genuine. That's exactly the right attitude. The client called this morning to confirm they're excited to see what we've put together. As the morning progresses, I notice how differently I'm handling the pre-presentation energy. Instead of obsessively reviewing my notes or rehearsing my talking points until they sound robotic, I focus on staying present. When I feel my chest tightening, I use the breathing techniques Dr. Webb taught me. When negative thoughts spiral about potential failure, I acknowledge them without letting them take over. At 11 a.m., my phone buzzes with a text from Rachel. Thinking of you today. Remember, you're not performing worthiness, you're sharing expertise. Another from Jessica. You've got this, and if you don't, that's okay.
And surprisingly, one from Dr. Martinez, the crisis counselor from the hospital. Maya, checking in on your big presentation day. Remember what we discussed about handling pressure? You're stronger than your anxiety gives you credit for. The fact that she remembered and reached out nearly brings me to tears. 2 weeks ago, I was a stranger in crisis in her emergency room. Today, She's part of my support network. At 1:30 p.m., I gather my materials and head to conference room A, where the Innovate Tech team is already setting up. 3 executives, including their CEO, Amanda Richardson, whom I've only met briefly before. My throat starts to close as I remember that this presentation could determine not just my career trajectory, but potentially the financial future of our entire agency. Maya, Amanda says, standing to shake my hand. We're looking forward to seeing what your team has developed. Thank you. Before we begin, I want to acknowledge that this timeline was accelerated, and I appreciate your flexibility in rescheduling when I had a medical issue last week. It's a small thing, but claiming my space to mention the medical accommodation feels important. I'm not hiding the fact that I'm human, that I have health needs that sometimes require professional adjustments. Of course, Amanda replies. Health comes first. I hope you're feeling better. I am. Thank you. The presentation begins, and for the first 20 minutes, everything flows smoothly. I walk them through our market analysis, demonstrate the user experience mockups, explain our integrated marketing strategy. The Innovate Tech team nods along, asks clarifying questions, and seems genuinely engaged with our approach. Then Amanda raises her hand. Maya, this is impressive work, but I have some concerns about scalability. If our user base grows as rapidly as we're projecting, how confident are you that this campaign structure can adapt without requiring complete redesign? The question hits me like a physical blow because it exposes exactly the scenario I was most afraid of, a complex technical inquiry that requires me to think on my feet and potentially admit the limitations of our approach. My old pattern would be to panic internally while projecting confidence externally, to give a vague answer that sounds authoritative but doesn't actually address her concern. Instead, I take a breath and let myself pause. That's an excellent question, and it highlights something important about our strategy. The framework we've designed is intentionally modular, which gives us flexibility as you scale. However, you're right that rapid growth would require additional infrastructure investments. I walk to the whiteboard and start sketching out a scaling timeline, showing them how different components of the campaign could be adjusted, expanded, or replaced as their needs evolve. I want to be honest with you. I'm surprised by my own words. No marketing strategy is future-proof against exponential growth. What we're offering is a strong foundation with clear pathways for evolution. The real question is whether you want a partner who can adapt with you or a vendor who promises certainty they can't actually deliver. The room goes quiet. For a moment, I wonder if I've just tanked the entire presentation by admitting uncertainty. Then Amanda smiles. That's exactly the kind of honest assessment we need. Too many agencies have promised us the moon without acknowledging the real challenges we're facing. The conversation that follows is unlike any client presentation I've ever given. Instead of performing expertise, I'm collaborating with them to solve problems. Instead of pretending to have all the answers, I'm asking better questions. When they raise concerns, I address them directly rather than deflecting. 45 minutes later, as we're wrapping up, Amanda turns to her team and then back to me. Maya, we'd like to move forward with Pinnacle Digital. Your approach is exactly what we've been looking for. Strategic but adaptable, confident but realistic. The relief that floods through me is immediately followed by something unexpected. Pride that has nothing to do with external validation. I gave an honest presentation on work I believed in with a team I respect for a client who values authenticity. Win or lose, I showed up as myself rather than a performance of who I thought they wanted me to be. After the Innovate Tech team leaves, Richard pulls me aside. Maya, that was incredible. I've never seen you present like that before. What do you mean? You seemed present, like you were actually having a conversation with them instead of delivering a script. Whatever you've been doing to take care of your health, it's made you a better professional, not a worse one.
The observation stops me cold because it's the opposite of what I expected. I thought getting help for my anxiety would make me appear weaker, less capable, less reliable. Instead, it seems to have made me more effective at the work I care about. But the real test comes later that afternoon when I call my parents to share the news about landing the account. That's wonderful, sweetheart, Mom exclaims. See, we knew you just needed some rest.
Are you feeling back to normal now? The question makes my chest tighten, not with anxiety this time, but with frustration. Mom, I'm feeling better because I'm getting treatment, not because I took time off. This isn't something I recover from and then forget about. But you got the big client, so obviously you're fine now. Getting the client doesn't mean my anxiety disorder has disappeared. It means I'm learning to manage it while still doing meaningful work. There's a pause, and I can hear my parents conferring in whispered voices. Maya, honey, Dad's voice comes through. We're just concerned that if you keep focusing on this mental health stuff, it might become a bigger problem than it needs to be. Sometimes the best thing is just to move forward and not dwell on difficulties. The familiar pattern emerges. My parents' discomfort with emotional complexity, their preference for solutions that involve ignoring problems until they go away. In the past, I might have agreed just to avoid conflict or gotten defensive and ended the call. Instead, I find myself responding with the same honesty I brought to the client presentation. Dad, I understand that mental health treatment feels uncomfortable to you, but anxiety isn't something I can just decide to stop having. What I can do is learn tools to manage it effectively, and that's exactly what I'm doing. But all this therapy and medication, doesn't that just make you more focused on the problem? No, it makes me more capable of handling challenges without falling apart. Like today, I gave the best presentation of my career specifically because I wasn't trying to hide my humanity. Mom's voice comes back, softer now. We just want you to be happy, Maya. I know you do, and I'm working on figuring out what happiness actually looks like for me rather than what I think it should look like. The conversation continues for another 10 minutes, and while my parents don't suddenly become mental health advocates, something shifts in how we're talking. I'm not trying to convince them or get their approval for my treatment choices. I'm simply informing them about my reality and holding space for their discomfort without taking responsibility for managing it. That evening, I call Rachel to debrief the day. So how did it feel? The presentation, the client meeting, all of it. Different. Like I was actually present instead of performing. And your anxiety? Still there, but it didn't control the outcome. I felt nervous, acknowledged it, used my tools, and kept going. The anxiety became information instead of a roadblock. That's huge, Maya. Yeah, it is. But the thing that surprised me most was how my parents reacted. They want me to be back to normal, but I'm realizing that normal wasn't actually working for me. What do you mean? I mean, maybe the panic attack wasn't a breakdown. Maybe it was a breakthrough, my body and mind finally refusing to pretend everything was fine when it wasn't. Rachel is quiet for a moment. I've been thinking about that too, about how the crisis might have been the best thing that could have happened, even though it was terrifying. How so? Because it forced you to stop performing and start being real. And it forced me to stop being the scattered sister who can't handle responsibility and start being the person you could actually rely on. As we hang up, I realize that the confrontation today wasn't just about the client presentation or my parents' discomfort with my treatment. It was about me finally facing the choice between continuing to perform an acceptable version of myself versus showing up authentically with all my struggles and strengths intact. For the first time in my adult life, I chose authenticity, and instead of the catastrophe I'd always feared, I found connection, success, and something that feels surprisingly like peace. The battle isn't over. Anxiety doesn't disappear after one good day, and family patterns don't change overnight. But today proved something crucial. I can handle difficult things without sacrificing my truth. I can be professional without being perfect. I can be strong without being invulnerable. That feels like the beginning of everything.
3 months later, I'm standing in front of a room full of corporate executives at the Dallas Business Mental Health Summit, delivering a keynote presentation I never could have imagined giving. The irony isn't lost on me. 6 months ago, I was having panic attacks about work presentations, and now I'm voluntarily speaking to 200 strangers about mental health in the workplace. My name is Maya Chen, and I'm the Senior Marketing Coordinator at Pinnacle Digital. I begin looking out at faces that range from curious to skeptical. 6 months ago, I was hospitalized for a severe panic attack. Today, I want to talk about how that crisis became the catalyst for the most productive period of my career. The story unfolds naturally, not the sanitized version I might have told before, but the real one. The ambulance ride, Rachel's absence, Dr. Martinez's documentation, the gradual understanding that high performance and mental health aren't opposites, but partners. The biggest myth about anxiety in professional settings is that managing it makes you less capable. In reality, learning to work with my anxiety instead of against it has made me more creative, more collaborative, and more effective at solving complex problems. I share specific examples, how acknowledging uncertainty during the Innovate Tech presentation led to better client relationships, how vulnerability with my team created psychological safety that improved everyone's performance, how setting boundaries around after-hours emails actually increased my productivity during work hours. During the Q&A, a woman raises her hand. Maya, this sounds inspirational, but what about the practical concerns? Don't you worry that being open about mental health issues will limit your career advancement? It's the question I would have asked 6 months ago, and I understand the fear behind it. I was promoted to department head 2 weeks ago, I say, watching surprise flicker across faces in the audience. Not despite my mental health advocacy, but partly because of it. Companies are starting to recognize that leaders who can model vulnerability and authentic problem solving are exactly what they need in an uncertain economy. After the presentation, I'm approached by dozens of people sharing their own stories: CEOs managing depression, marketing directors with ADHD, HR professionals dealing with burnout. The conversations continue over lunch, in the hallways, through LinkedIn messages that arrive for weeks afterwards. But the most meaningful moment comes when a young woman who looks about my age approaches as I'm packing up my materials. My sister thinks I should just quit my job and move home. She says if work is making me anxious, I should find something easier. But listening to you, maybe there's another option. I give her Dr. Webb's contact information and the number for the Employee Assistance Program at her company. As she walks away, I realize something profound. My crisis has become a bridge for someone else's recovery. That evening, I drive to Dr. Webb's office for what has become a monthly check-in rather than weekly crisis management. The change in frequency happened gradually as I developed internal resources and external support systems that made me less dependent on therapy for basic functioning. Maya, you've been thinking about something, she observes as I settle into the familiar chair. What's on your mind? I've been wondering about the version of me that existed before the panic attack. Like, was she real, or was she just a performance I'd been giving for so long that I believed it myself? Dr. Webb leans forward with interest. What do you think? I think she was real, but incomplete. She was all the parts of me that felt safe to show the world. Competent Maya, successful Maya, independent Maya. But she was exhausting to maintain because she was only part of the truth. And now? Now I feel like I'm all of me. The anxious parts, the confident parts, the confused parts, the parts that know exactly what they want. It's messier, but it's honest. We talk about the concept of integration, not eliminating the anxious or uncertain parts of myself, but learning to include them in a fuller version of who I am. The Maya who gives keynote speeches still gets nervous. The Maya who leads a team still sometimes doubts her decisions. But now, those feelings are information rather than emergencies. After therapy, I drive to the airport to pick up Rachel, who's flying in for the weekend. She's graduating next month with her master's degree, and we're celebrating by apartment hunting together. She's decided to move to Dallas permanently, taking a position with an architecture firm that specializes in community mental health facilities.
I can't believe my little sister is a keynote speaker now, she says as we navigate through DFW traffic. Mom called me 3 times to talk about the article in the Dallas Morning News. How are they handling all this? Better than expected, actually. I think seeing you succeed professionally while being open about mental health issues is slowly changing their perspective. What do you mean?
Dad told me last week that he's proud of how you turned a difficult situation into an opportunity to help other people, which isn't exactly enlightened mental health advocacy, but it's progress. We spend Saturday looking at apartments in neighborhoods that split the difference between Rachel's new job downtown and my office in the suburbs. It's strange and wonderful to be planning our geography around proximity rather than obligation. We both want to live near each other because we genuinely enjoy each other's company, not because family ties require it. Maya, can I tell you something I've never said out loud? Rachel asks as we're sitting in a coffee shop between apartment viewings. Always. The night you were in the hospital, after I finally saw your messages, I had my own panic attack. Not because you were in crisis, but because I realized I had no idea how to be a supportive sister to someone who wasn't falling apart. She stirs her latte, choosing her words carefully. I had gotten so used to being the family disaster that when you actually needed help, I didn't know what role to play. All my scripts were about being rescued, not about doing the rescuing. Rachel, let me finish. I want you to know that learning to show up for you has taught me how to show up for myself. Going to therapy, finishing my degree, building friendships that aren't based on drama, I couldn't have done any of that if you hadn't shown me what it looks like to choose growth over comfortable dysfunction. The conversation shifts to her thesis defense next week, my new responsibilities as department head, the ways we've both changed since that night 6 months ago. But underneath the logistics, there's something deeper. We're becoming adults who choose each other, rather than children who are stuck with each other. Sunday morning brings an unexpected phone call from Dr. Martinez at the hospital. Maya, I hope you don't mind me reaching out directly. I've been following up on the crisis intervention documentation from your case, and I wanted to share some results from our research study. Of course. We've been tracking outcomes for patients who received crisis intervention for anxiety-related emergencies. Your case has become somewhat of a model for what successful follow-through looks like. She explains that most people who come to the ER for panic attacks either never follow up with treatment recommendations or engage with therapy briefly before discontinuing. My case, sustained therapy, medication compliance, family system changes, workplace advocacy, represents the kind of comprehensive approach that leads to long-term wellness rather than crisis management. Maya, we'd like to include your story in a training program for crisis counselors. Not identifying details, of course, but the progression from emergency intervention to sustained recovery. Would you be willing to participate? What would that involve? A panel discussion with other patients who've had positive treatment outcomes, talking to medical residents about the importance of thorough documentation and follow-up care, showing them that the work they do in crisis moments can have impacts that extend far beyond the immediate emergency. The request feels like completing a circle. Dr. Martinez's careful documentation that night wasn't just medical record keeping. It was the beginning of a story about recovery that could help other people write their own stories. I'd be honored to participate. Monday morning arrives with the familiar energy of a new week, but everything about how I approach it has changed. Instead of checking work emails the moment I wake up, I spend 20 minutes in meditation, a practice that once felt indulgent but now feels essential. Instead of skipping breakfast to get to the office early, I make eggs and coffee and read the news like a person who has time for her own life. At work, I start the day with individual check-ins with my team members, not about project deadlines, but about how they're doing as humans who happen to work together. Sarah mentions she's been stressed about her daughter starting kindergarten. Marcus shares that he's considering therapy for the first time since his divorce last year. Jennifer talks about feeling overwhelmed by the pace of client demands. These conversations used to feel like distractions from real work. Now they feel like the foundation that makes real work possible. Maya, Richard says, stopping by my desk around lunchtime, I've been thinking about our conversation last week regarding the mental health initiative you proposed. What about it? I want to expand it.
Not just lunch and learns, but integrated into our company culture. Flexible scheduling for therapy appointments, mental health days that don't count against PTO, training for managers on supporting team members who are struggling.
Richard, that sounds incredible, but are you sure leadership will support it? Maya, 3 of our biggest clients have specifically mentioned our team's collaborative approach and authentic communication as reasons they're expanding their contracts with us. Whatever we're doing differently is working. I want to systematize it. The conversation continues for an hour, and by the end, we've outlined a comprehensive workplace mental health program that will serve as a model for other companies in our industry. It feels surreal to be designing the kind of support system I wish I'd had 6 months ago. That evening, I call Rachel to share the news about the workplace mental health expansion and the hospital training program. Maya, she says, her voice full of something I recognize as pride. Do you realize what you've done? What do you mean? You've turned your worst night into other people's best opportunities. Your panic attack is going to help train doctors, change workplace culture, and create support systems for people who are going through what you went through. I never thought about it that way. Maybe that's the real meaning of recovery, not just getting better, but using what you've learned to make the world a little more hospitable for other people who are struggling. As we hang up, I sit in my apartment, the same space where I had my breakdown 6 months ago, and feel something I've never experienced before. Complete alignment between who I am, what I do, and how I show up in the world. The anxiety didn't disappear. The pressure of work didn't vanish. The complexity of family relationships didn't resolve into perfect harmony, but I learned to meet all of those realities with tools, support systems, and most importantly, honesty about my own humanity. Dr. Martinez was right when she documented that night as a crisis intervention, but what neither of us could have predicted is that the intervention would extend far beyond my individual crisis, creating ripple effects that change how other people understand the relationship between vulnerability and strength. Sometimes, the thing that breaks you open is exactly what the world needs you to share. Sometimes, your crisis becomes someone else's roadmap. Sometimes falling apart is actually falling into who you were always meant to be. Looking for more? We've got 2 amazing stories ready for you right on screen. If this one touched you, these are absolutely worth your time. Click to watch them now. And hey, subscribe and hit that bell to never miss our latest uploads.